Whether you're a founder, a CMO, or a marketing director, most people struggle over this single question. What makes us different? You workshop it with your team, hire consultants to help wordsmith it, build positioning platforms with all the right frameworks, debate it until someone finally says, I think we've got it. Yet still almost nothing changes. Sales are still flat, the sales team still can't explain why someone should choose them, buyers still can't articulate what the brand stands for, and 6 months later, the whole cycle starts over with a new agency and a new brief. I've watched this happen inside companies and with clients more times than I can count. And the real reason, the actual reason, is almost never discussed. Stay with me through this video and I'll show you exactly why and what the goal actually should be, along with 3 things you can start doing this week. Aloha, I'm Brent Shiratori and this is Aidia Marketing. Today, we're going to go deep on brand positioning, specifically the single most common mistake companies make when they try to fix it, and why it affects companies of every size, including some very sophisticated marketing organizations. 3 things you'll take away from this. First, why simply being different isn't enough to drive conversion. Second, what the research actually shows us about how buyers make decisions, and why it should change your entire approach to brand strategy. Third, 3 concrete things you can audit and change in your own marketing to start building the kind of brand presence that drives real growth. Let's get into it. Almost every business owner I've worked with believes their marketing team's job is ultimately to find the right answer to a single question. What makes us different than our competition? So they go to work, they map the competitive landscape, they interview customers, they identify white space, they spend weeks going back and forth on language until they have something they feel confident about. A positioning statement, a value proposition, an elevator pitch that finally captures what makes them unique. And in most cases, that work produces something that sounds right, but doesn't actually move anything. The product doesn't get easier to sell, the marketing doesn't get measurably more effective, the brand doesn't grow any faster. And here's why. The mental model driving all of that work is rational. It assumes that buyers are actively comparing options, weighing your differentiated attributes against the competition's, and then finally making a clear choice of the one with the most compelling case. But that's not how people actually buy products. And the research backs this up pretty clearly. When buyers make a purchase decision, especially for low involvement products or for categories that they buy all the time, they're not running a comparative evaluation each and every single time. They're reaching for what's most familiar, most available in their mind, what comes to mind first when the purchase moment arrives. The company with the best differentiation story often loses to the company that shows up fastest in the buyer's mental shortlist. And you know what? Almost no one in brand strategy actually talks about this. You see, there's a difference between differentiation and distinctiveness. Differentiation asks, do they understand why we're better? Distinctiveness asks, do they instantly know it's us and think of us first? Now, those are 2 completely different games. And most companies, especially smaller ones with limited budgets, are spending most of their time and money focusing on the wrong one. This isn't intuition. There's a significant body of empirical research behind it. The Ehrenberg-Bass Institute is a marketing science research group at the University of South Australia. They spent decades running large-scale studies across categories, everything from packaged goods to financial services, automotive, technology, measuring how brands actually grow. And their findings challenge some of the most deeply held beliefs in brand strategy, including some of my own. Their first finding: most buyers do not perceive the brands they regularly purchase as meaningfully different from their competitors. That's right, most buyers don't really see a difference in the brands they buy from their competition. Now, think about what that means. A brand can command decades of loyalty and market share with essentially no perceived differentiation from its competitors, which means differentiation, as traditionally practiced, isn't explaining much of the variance in who gets bought and who doesn't. What explains it instead is a concept they call mental availability. Mental availability is how easily a brand surfaces in the buyer's mind when they're in a purchase situation. It's not about whether they understand your value proposition. It's about whether you're accessible, almost automatic in their thinking when the moment to buy arrives. And mental availability is built not through differentiation, but through what researchers call distinctive brand assets. Distinctive assets are the specific sensory cues that buyers associate with a brand. So like a color, a shape, a sound, a character, a phrase. The things that trigger instant recognition without requiring conscious processing. Amex Blue or McDonald's Golden Arches, Geico's Gecko, the Intel Chime, the Coca-Cola script. None of those are value propositions. None of them explain why we're better. They're recognition triggers. They get the brand into the buyer's mind before the conscious evaluation process even begins. And research from Ehrenberg-Bass shows that brands with strong distinctive assets have higher mental availability, and that higher mental availability correlates directly with growth, market share, and purchase frequency. Byron, who co-authored much of this work and wrote How Brands Grow, summarized it this way. Distinctive branding lasts, differentiation doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean your value proposition doesn't matter. It just means leading with differentiation, making it the primary growth lever, misunderstands where growth actually comes from. Let me make this concrete. A company optimizing for differentiation is asking, what can we say that our competitors can't say? And then building its identity, messaging, and campaigns around that answer. The problem is that most buyers aren't paying attention to that comparison. They're busy. They don't have time to evaluate every vendor, every option, every why us story. They buy what they recognize, what stands out in their mind, what feels familiar when the decision moment arrives. Here's a useful test. Think about your own brand for a second. If you removed your logo from every piece of marketing you produce, your ads, your website, your proposals, your social content, would buyers still know it was you? Would the color palette alone cue your brand? For most small to mid-sized companies, the honest answer is no. And that's the gap. You might have excellent positioning, a genuinely compelling why us narrative, but if you don't have distinctive assets that buyers have learned to associate with you, reliably, consistently across every touch point, your brand has no presence. It doesn't show up in the buyer's mind when it matters. Okay, so if distinctiveness is the real lever, what do you actually do about it? 3 things, and all 3 require real discipline. First, audit your distinctive assets. Not what you wish they were, what they actually are today. Make a list of every consistent visual and verbal element your brand uses, your specific colors, the exact hex codes, not just we use blue, your logo, your typography, any imagery style you've used consistently, any characters or voices that have appeared repeatedly, and any phrases or slogans you've deployed over time. Then ask the harder question. If I showed these elements to a buyer in my category without the logo, would they associate them with my company specifically? The hard truth is, for most small companies, the answer is no, or at best, for some of them, which tells you exactly where the real work is. Stop reinventing every campaign. A new campaign with a fresh visual direction, a new tagline, a different look and feel, feels creative. It gets presented internally as an evolution, a brand refresh, a relaunch. But from the buyer's perspective, every refresh is starting over. Memory structures are built through repetition. Every time you introduce a new visual system like a new color palette or a new typographic approach, you're asking buyers to relearn your brand, and most just won't bother. McDonald's has had those golden arches since 1962, not because they haven't had the budget or design capability to change them, because the recognition equity in those arches is worth way more than any aesthetic update. Before your next campaign, ask whether you're building on the recognition you've already established or trying to be different for difference sake. If you're changing a core visual or verbal elements, you need a genuinely strong reason. The team is bored is a really bad answer to that. Third, reach more buyers more often. This one challenges a belief most marketing departments hold pretty firm. The instinct is always to get better at converting the buyers you already have, build loyalty, deepen retention, get existing customers to buy more. The Ehrenberg-Bass research is direct about this. Brand growth comes primarily from penetration, reaching more buyers, not from deepening loyalty with existing ones. Which means your marketing shouldn't be entirely focused on your most ideal, highest intent buyer. It needs visibility with a broader set of potential buyers who may not be in the market today, but will be eventually. For companies with limited budgets, this doesn't mean trying to be everywhere. It means being intentional about reach and making sure that wherever buyers encounter your brand, your distinctive assets are doing the recognition work. Every touch point is a chance to build a memory structure or to waste that opportunity by showing up inconsistently. So let me bring this back to the beginning. When a small to mid-sized company comes to me and says, we have a positioning problem, I start by looking at their content, marketing, and branding compared to their competitions. And I ask myself, is their brand truly distinctive, or do they just get lost in the mix? Most of the time, they're simply not distinctive and memorable enough. And a better tagline or a sharper, unique selling proposition or months of positioning workshops won't fix that. What does fix it is showing up consistently, distinctively, and broadly enough that buyers stop having to work to remember it. The positioning statement still matters. Strategic clarity still matters, but it's just the beginning. The solution is in executing distinctively against that foundation with enough repetition and reach that your brand becomes automatic. That's what you're actually building toward. And the path there runs through distinctiveness, not differentiation. If this is useful, there's a lot more on brand strategy, marketing frameworks, and how to build marketing that actually drives revenue on this channel. Check out the other videos here and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss what's coming. Remember, you don't have to buy more ads when you have better ideas.